Hello everybody, Jared Gingler here with another piece of content related to sales. We've got Gene Jarod back to help out with our conversation. Topic today is going to be around prospecting and what our day-to-day process looks like. We come from two very different backgrounds in sales, so I hope this is going to be pretty insightful. I just wanted to thank everybody that's watching this video right now for joining and listening to this content. It helps a lot for the channel if you like and subscribe. And with that, we'll get started. So, Gene, I know we've talked a lot about this topic before, but wanted to take the opportunity to kind of bring it to the table and share our insights from our very backgrounds related to prospecting and what our day-to-day looks like. So, I guess from the forefront, what jumps out to you most as kind of a highlight of what your process looks like and some of the things you focus on?
Yeah, thanks, Jared, and thanks for having me. Really appreciate you just putting this together. And I think it's really cool that we're doing this from our angles here, because we both are going to have pretty unique perspectives. Mm-hmm. You know, you've been in the technology space, really working national accounts. A lot of what I do is very local. I work in that small to medium-sized business space. It's a lot more face-to-face type work. Mm-hmm. So I guess from my perspective, it usually I'm going to be thinking my approach is going to be from that, more of from my own experience, which is that. But even that being the case, when we're talking about philosophies around prospecting, what prospecting is, even at a local level versus national level, a lot of the concepts are going to be similar. So for your listeners, I know they'll take a little bit away from each of us. I think for me, when it comes to prospecting, it really has to come. One of the things when you're going to work somewhere and you're going to prospect, you got to really understand what is your value that you're bringing to a client or a prospect. Like what is the value, and what do you believe in what you're doing? Mm-hmm. I think to me, that is going to be one of the most important pieces before you decide to work for somewhere, right? I've been blessed to always work for places that have values that align with mine. So, because the big thing about prospecting is sharing. Prospecting is you're sharing an overarching message, in your company's message. So if you don't believe in what your company is, the message your company is trying to bring, you're going to be a fraud. And every prospective client, customer, whatever you want to call it, they're going to see right through that. And you need to be able to operate from a standpoint of, I believe in what we're doing. Mr. and Mrs. Customer, client, prospect, you need to hear our message. I have and I heard this from a sales coach I follow, and I remember this from a former leader I had, and they asked me, he asked me, Gene, why do you think you make these calls? Why do you think we have you make these calls? I said, well, and this is when I was a younger rep, just getting going. He's like, well, we make these calls to grow our business. That's all we talk about, is growing our business, and we want to grow our business, do more deals, blah, 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 blah. And he let me know, and this is kind of eye-opening me, because it's very mindset-based. He's like, well, if I've given you that impression, I'm sorry, because that's wrong. We want you to call and make these dials and do this outreach to reach people, to help solve problems for other people. Mm-hmm. And if we can't solve problems for them, I want you to move on. It's prospecting, in my eyes, it's an act of service to the people that we're reaching out to and our prospects. We're trying to help them solve a problem and get them to where they want to be. So I've always kind of approached it from that point. And that's a long way to answer your question, but I really want to. I gotta preface it. You gotta operate from a standpoint of belief in what you're doing and have energy around it.
Totally, and I can reflect on that in my own practices as well. You mentioned a national approach. My folks that I work with aren't local, So I have to kind of be a little bit more creative about how I manage, my time and how I use certain tools. The tech stack we have here at Sovos allows me to, maximize what I'm doing. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Solving a problem and being, a trusted advisor versus, just chasing down quick deals is really what sets someone apart with their prospecting efforts. I've kind of switched my philosophy as of late from talking about product to talking about problems, because it's shows the prospect what's in it for them, and it's really a solution, and not just a solution to a single problem, but from my perspective, from in the Sovos world, it's creating the solution set of the big picture of all the things we offer. So it might be the call I just had an hour ago was around having that type of call where we can bring everything together, talk about the 6 or 7 things that we do outside of the one thing that customer does with one of our competitors. So my approach as of the past couple months after switching to a new logo role is all about providing value, like you mentioned, and opening the door to a conversation, not just scheduling the meeting. Getting things rolling, getting somebody on board with learning outside of just send me a white paper or send me an email. It's about starting the conversation.
Yeah, start the conversation, get a meeting, but operate from a standpoint of intention. That listen, this is hopefully I can solve a problem that you have. If not, if I'm not the right fit, I can make introductions and I connect you with people who can get this solved for you. But in really just getting down to just looking at it from a standpoint of helping and making each call as taking prospecting around getting your guys' message across, right? And then understanding where your value is. Like, my day-to-day is, I provide access to capital to small, medium-sized businesses, help them with cash management software and solutions, and help get better ROI, right? So I understand right away, like that's what I'm good at, and that's what I can help with. And Mr. and Mrs. Customer, when I'm reaching out to you, like, you should be talking to me, because I know without a doubt, some way, somehow, I can provide you value. Whether it's just insights, like being maybe a leader in my industry and having insight on what could be useful to them. I always say when you're prospecting, you want to be bringing value to someone long before you're even talking about a product.
Yep.
Like my goal is to provide immediate value, and then operate from a standpoint of pure intentions and being a genuine person. I'm not trying to get anyone to do anything when I'm prospecting, and I feel like sometimes the media and different movies and things like that, where they glorify sales and talk about it, it's this push, closing tactics, all that's not how. I don't believe that's how business development should be done. I think it needs to be done from a standpoint of providing actual value and trying to help and understand what's going on and operate from where they are. Not trying to trick anybody or closing tactics, any of that stuff. I don't believe in any of that. And I think if you're doing any type of business long term, that type of activity and treatment is gonna, the way you act in the marketplace, your reputation is gonna stick with you wherever you go, especially in this day and age of social media and your brand. So I think that's the big piece on how I think about philosophy, how I think about prospecting, how I enter it. From your standpoint, you can get stuck with time management, chasing ghosts, and wasting a lot of time. So how are you prioritizing what you should be doing, how you should be spending your time?
That's a great question, and it's something I try to refine every day so that I can be as efficient as possible with my time. I use a couple different applications on my phone and on my computer to both time block, task batch, and theme.
You technology guys, you got all this cool stuff. you do all this. You got all that. I feel so archaic and dinosaur version. You got all this all these apps that are creating efficiencies, and I still got pen and paper. But I mean, I'm in the banking business. It's a little old and archaic compared to you're really cutting edge. But go ahead, sorry.
No, it's sometimes too much. I mean, I've gotten to the point now where I've got, a calendar within a calendar within a calendar. It seems like, something tracking how many, calling sessions I'm doing, reaching out, the prospecting core activities throughout the day, or, doing the research so I can make those calls, or, following up with the people that I'm already working with, managing my pipeline. So that there's a lot that goes into how I manage my time. And it's, like I said, it's both Outlook, it's apps like Todoist and Timemuller, and using different efficiency tools like Wakeout. So there's a lot that I've been trying to implement over the past, couple months, really, since switching to this new role, where, I need to be efficient. And if I'm not efficient, then I'm, not going to be able to, get my job done in a successful fashion. So I guess to sum up your question, it's an ever-changing process, and I'm continually trying to be more efficient, so that when I'm making those personal outreaches to prospects, it's as concise and streamlined as possible.
Yeah, and I think I'd want to preface too with what you and I do is it's really cold outbound outreach is what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. We're not just getting inbound type of leads, and so we need to. We're taking it from a standpoint of reaching out to someone who may or not be familiar with what we do.
Yeah.
As in the organizations we've worked with, we've always worked in that type of business development. Some would call it a hunter role, and when you're prospecting, and if you're doing what we do in this more of this cold outreach, you're taking someone who doesn't even realize they have a problem, and you're trying to bring that to the forefront. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said you got to kind of believe in what you do when you're prospecting, because you got someone, we in our industry, people like to throw the word pain around. There's active pain and there's latent pain, and the active pain is it has to get done. It has to. I'll do a medical analogy, right? Because it's easy to do. Like if you're having a heart attack, it's got to get taken care of today, right? There's got to be now the preventative care to that heart attack is latent pain, right? We don't know. I don't know if I don't do this, something really bad's going to happen to me. But I don't even realize unless a professional approaches me that I better do this, or something really bad is going to happen.
For sure.
So our job, and that's why if you believe in what you do, and you're in a standpoint of, okay, I need to make sure everyone in my area that I'm responsible for is aware of what I can do before something really bad happens to them. If you're approaching your business that way and you believe in what you do, you're like, I believe when I talk to a business, I'm potentially saving their business, and I'm growing their revenue, and I'm creating processes and efficiencies that are going to take them to the next level. Mm-hmm. And if I believe that, and they see that I believe that, and it's not about features, benefits, widgets when I'm calling and doing outreach.
Yeah.
I'm building a relationship and a partnership and a collaboration. You can't lose.
Yep. And
you're going to do really well. But I think it really starts with looking on the inside before you even take the journey of making a call. You should really ask, talk to when you're interviewing companies, if you're trying to figure out where you're going to work, and if you want to move forward with a job to work with a company, you need to make sure how do we really help people? How do I, especially if it's a business development role, because you can't fake it. It's got to be real, authentic, mm-hmm. especially with how competitive. Doesn't matter what service, where you work. It's so competitive right now, isn't it?
For sure.
Right? There's so much competition out there, and so you need to have a good understanding of how you actually provide value. Mm-hmm. Get to the point, and be a trusted advisor, like we talk about. And provide immediate value before you even get into a product.
Yep. And just thinking about what you just described, things that jump out to me are stories.
Yeah.
I know this is probably something you preach all the time, having conversations with folks you're initiating the process.
I get preachy, don't I? I already call it. We all have strong philosophies, right? So
yeah. But no, I think from my almost 3 years of experience here with Sovos, I've seen time and time again, someone come in with this issue, us providing the ability for them to, offload that service or free up their time in January, or, take the extra workload that's on their plate and minimizing that so they get freed up for other tasks. Like being able to show a company, company X, that we worked with company Y and solve all the same things they're seeing in front of them, that in terms of the prospecting process makes it that much easier, because you're not only showing you can solve the problem, but you're explaining the proof, and the proof is essentially what drives a lot of the belief in what you're saying.
Well, if in your space, in that in that compliance software space that you work in, certain size company, they're regulated differently, right? So they better have their compliance under wraps,
for sure,
right? And if they don't, and they're not utilizing what you do, they could be subject to some major fines and major issues that come through that. So yeah, I mean, what you're doing is important, and it's very important, and that kind of goes to the thing where it's like, what happens though when you're prospecting, you got to operate from a standpoint of where your client is. So if my client is at a point where they've never heard of me and what I do, recognize that and start from there.
Yep.
And take them through. I love the guide analogy, because I think if you take a guide approach and you operate like you're a guide, not a salesperson, who's convincing and cheesy. If there's more power if you're a guide, and you're like, and you're taking them through what your process looks like, what are the expectations are, and there's power in that, and there's also power in knowing, like, being upfront, like, well, if your values don't align with my values, then maybe it's not a good fit, and we can both agree to disagree.
For sure.
Yeah, I have a lot of conversations and thoughts about that. Let me ask you, what are your? What's funny is about prospecting, people think price, right? Do you think price come up a lot when you're calling and prospecting? Do people always is it about price all the time, or what is it you're finding when you're out there?
Yeah, price is occasionally something gets brought up early in a conversation, but I think more so it's about status quo and a manual process. A lot of folks that we're talking to have done the same thing for 10, 15 years without knowing what else is out there. Maybe it's a older software, or it could be something a late or internal process. So from my perspective, my outside of the initial outreach, but subsequent conversations, it's really about explaining the big picture and telling them about the regulation changes that are taking place, or giving them insights into how others are navigating the different things that the IRS puts out. So things like that allow you to justify the investment, or justify the change, or the time it's going to take to do the implementation, or all the different pieces of the puzzle that go into beyond just saying yes to that first meeting. It's a process. There's a lot that goes into change, and I think once you get down to the brass tacks of negotiating a scenario, they've either decided that the change is going to be a possibility on their end, and they're trying to make it happen, or they're just kind of pulling the chain a little bit. It really depends on the level of commitment that's on both sides.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point. And a lot of times, people where you're talking to don't understand your process. They don't know how to buy, right? We run into that. They don't even know how to buy necessarily, or they don't know what it is to, in my space, what it takes to get access to capital. So they don't know. So a lot of it is educating and taking them through. And I just bring up the price. Sometimes when people are prospecting, they like to. I think it's a mistake to prospect from a standpoint of I have a sale. Just talk about numbers right away, and that I don't think that's the way to do it. And so it's just another piece here when you as a rep are thinking about what you want to do and how you want to approach growing your business. You got to kind of have things in the back of your mind about how you want to approach that. For sure. And if somebody just wants to just go to price right away and get you off the phone, send me a proposal, those aren't necessarily. That's not necessarily the way to grow the relationship, because you're not really understanding the bigger problem. And it's probably going to go to procurement or go to the decision maker and go to no decision, because the default is always to do nothing and keep doing what you've always been doing. And unless you're at to that point of that active pain point where it's got to get done. So I think it is, when you're having these discussions, when you're reaching out, you got to have big picture discussions with people.
And that big picture is something that I've kind of learned as of late through some knowledge gaining, I guess, now rereading. Been reading a little bit about how to position a bigger conversation, paint the big picture, and that's something that we're really focusing heavy on with Sovos right now, is painting the platform picture. What all do we do? How can we help out from not just this point solution perspective, but like these are all the things that we can pull together, consolidate under one roof, provide efficiencies, economies of scale, all those things that someone values when they can trust one person versus five. That only solidifies a longer term relationship of further trust. And I think that's one great thing about being confident in what I sell and what I position to my prospects, is that we have such a great big picture to offer. And I think for me the position that I can be in to help solve many problems makes that initial outreach even more fun, because it's like, hey, let's talk about what are you guys doing for this? What are you doing for that? How can we help in this way, but also save your business money on this side of the house. You kind of hit the point on the head there, like being confident in what you are talking about makes such a big difference.
Well, let's talk about types of ways to prospect. I guess. So why don't you talk about from your standpoint, how have you prospected, or what does prospecting look like to you, or as far as the type of activity? Obviously, we got into kind of our philosophy and our strategy when we're having conversations and getting the meeting. But how are you initiating that type of work? What is it you have found that's been successful for you?
So really it's all about activity for me. Like I said, I've got national accounts, so I've got on the states out on the East Coast that I have customers and prospects in, and really it's about putting in the time with cadences around educating via email, getting LinkedIn connections, connecting with folks via email on LinkedIn, providing content value, sharing things from Sovos or our company or your company, whoever it might be, and then the calls. It's, if you're not trying to connect with someone firsthand and have that conversation, then you're missing out, because you can probably reflect on this from the face-to-face perspective. Having a solid conversation about a business topic and potentially solving a problem, it just goes so much further than seeing an email, scrolling past it, and thinking about it 6 months from now. Like if you can catch someone on the phone, maybe you make 35, 40 calls a day, but you catch one person on the phone and turn it into a conversation. Then it's all worth it. You got to put in the time and effort, and have those numbers to make things a possibility. You can't just wait for things to come your way.
Well, you have to get out there, right? Because and that's the important of, that's why what business development reps do is so important, because you have to get out there. You can't just, a company can't just keep its information, keep it in a basement and hope people buy it. They need people to get out there, and you do a good job of it. You're one of the best, so I appreciate you sharing that, as far as especially cadence on calling and a cadence around email scripts and just doing that type of work. For me, it's a mixture, right? I mean, I make my fair share of phone calls to try to get our message out there.
Yeah.
And I go to I go to a lot of events. I am fortunate where I'm working with businesses and clients right here in my state and outside as well. But a vast majority, I have ways to get out, meet with clients, and face-to-face share some insights, talk about what I'm seeing in their industry, and do work that way. I do a lot of networking. I'm known in the communities I serve to provide the services that I provide, and it's almost and when you help someone and you do a good job with someone in a certain industry, your name spreads across.
Yep.
Right. It's like if I've financed an acquisition for a business and I've done a good job, and people within that industry see that they've learned about my project that I've helped someone accomplish, it spreads.
Yep.
And there's a word of mouth piece to that when you do things the right way.
Yep.
And even after the transaction's done, you extend the deal in a way of continuing providing value to that client, and everyone that client knows about what you did. So those are kind of the biggest ways I've had success. I do my fair share of dials. I've worked with past clients, and I've had clear and concise messaging in the marketplace, what it is Gene is about, and how I can bring value. And you need to be talking to me about this, and that, because this is what I'm good at. So I mean, it's just so being known as an expert, right? And I think if you're known as an expert, people you get to a point where people are calling you for advice, and that's where we all want to be, is being able to just provide advice and help people get to where they want to be.
Yep. All right, Gene, I know we talked about a lot here related to prospecting, strategies, philosophies, day-to-day, time management. Really appreciate you joining the conversation again. This has always been fun to kind of put our heads together and learn from each other, and parlay some conversation strategies to people that are listening in. So
thanks for having me.
Where can people reach you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so Gene Richmeyer on LinkedIn.
I'll put your name in the comments so that people can find you.
Yeah, if somebody has any other questions, feel free to reach out. I appreciate you allowing me to come on.
Definitely. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. My name will be on the video and in the comments. If you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. Hoping this is helpful, and we will see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Everybody. Bye.